This video reconstructs one of the opening presentations at Ventura's Thursday Poetry series. The series host, Phil Taggart, wanted someone to do a responsive reading ahead of the open mic portion of the first meeting in October. But why did he ask me, a psychiatrist, rather than some poet crony? Was it just to watch someone like me, someone from science and reality, struggling and striving to understand poetry? Well, speaking of cronies, my poet wife Anita has presented at this series before for Phil, and has published poems in Askew and Spillway, journals co-edited by Phil. And somehow that implicated me. By the way, Anita publishes as Anita S. Pullier, mainly because that's her name, and I go by Myron Pullier for a similar reason. I'm saying this by way of a hello, like introducing myself. Hello. I'd like to thank Phil Taggart, the Poet Laureate of Ventura County, for this opportunity to do a responsive reading and to try to cure the ills of today's poetry, exposing the silliness concealed in profundity and the profundity lurking in the simply silly. Phil may have picked me because of his cronyism with Anita, but I'll end up here picking and then picking on one of Anita's poems. That's because, as we know from our most recent run of presidents from Kennedy on down, nepotism trumps cronyism. Of course, I'm going to be cautious just how I respond to all of the poems, not just to Anita's. And not just because she's a lawyer as well as a poet. Normally, I'm careful what I say in front of her in every way. Words matter in any marriage. Words matter for clinicians treating patients, matter for attorneys contracting and pleading, matter for poets crafting and conjuring poetry, and matter for conjurers elevating demons. Reciting a spell just a teeny bit wrong can spell a whole passel of trouble. Don't try this at home. So let's start cautiously with a good, solid, successful, traditional format, a haiku. 3 lines of 5, 7, and 5 syllables respectively, and then raise up a whole haikai from there. I hope you enjoy. Why haikai, you ask? A haikai is a mixed genre. Initially, it combined haiku with narrative palaver. Then it expanded to include graphic art and contributions from fellow poets. That is, from cronies, if you will. Today, with PowerPoint technology for our haikai, we get to mash in music, animation, villanelle, and doggerel. Crafting around year 1800, Kobayashi Issa became one of the 4 renowned haiku masters. Despite his efforts, he wrote 20,000 haiku. Issa remained impoverished and never achieved commercial success. Maybe because 150 of his haiku were about his problems with mosquitoes. Anyway, here's Issa's haiku about hell. In this world of ours, we walk on the roof of hell, gazing at the flowers. The Basho revival during Issa's time was a reaction against commercialization of haikai, but thankfully the World Wide Web has restored the profit potential in haikai, and even in just plain haiku. We can order a customized haiku scroll online for just $180. Before Issa, the master poet Matsuo Basho had made the previously irreverent haikai no renga much more serious, mashing up haiku with prose accounts of his travels. Here's my travel account, mashed up into a post-postmodern haiku that beats Issa's obsolete gazing haiku by 3 syllables. The Ridge Road. You can stop to view the valley where the ridge road curves away, but there's a warning. my favorite poet, Anita, and I encountered this morning on Mulholland Drive as we traveled to the Nike missile control site that used to keep us safe during the Cold War. Yes, safety first. We doctors are supposed to be cautious, to take good care in all denotations and connotations of taking care. We doctors, even psychiatrists, pledge to follow the rules and be ethical, to apply science, and even to take death seriously. Maybe that's why there are so few doctor poets. There's the venerable William Carlos Williams, Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr., and John Keats, the old Nightingale guy, a lapsed surgeon. Actually, oughtn't we all practice safe texting? Especially in romantic love poems like Roses Are Red. This is where poetry started for all of us, complete with rhyme, rhythm, and reason. As he aged, W.H. Auden clung to formal order as second best after the love that he never managed to get requited. Yet more and more poets seem to believe it's okay to outgrow rhythm and rhyme and to shed reason and even roses, which leaves us with what? Starting a poem with Roses Are Red, the most basic cadence from which all other poetry has developed. Starting with Roses Are Red is apparently falling out of fashion, derided in MFA courses, and, as a result, like Nightingale's, being rejected out of hand when submitted to poetry journals. The first man to compare the cheeks of a young woman to a rose was obviously a poet. The first to repeat it was possibly an idiot. Of course, it's more cautious to join a promising attack than to back the losing side. So fine, let's lose the roses, but cut out reason and logic as well, leaving us with nothing but castrated verse, reflecting the universal vacuum out of which has arisen the great cosmic joke? Have we entered the gelded age of poetry, when only metaphor remains to decorate our essential emptiness, much like lipstick on a pig? Not that there's anything wrong with pigs, or wrong with emptiness. I mean, logically, how could there be? Here's my incensed dissent on dispensing with sense and form in today's sorry, stripped and shorn stragglers from the time-honored Roses Are Red tradition of poetry. Towards precision in verse. Though anything terse now passes for verse, with rhyming and meter exiled, it makes poets look dense not to make any sense in a poem. Don't try to deny it. Come on, roses are rose, not arisen, just rose, and violets are mostly violet. It's silly to pose confusion for those whose minds you aspire to beguile. It's bluets that are blue, you poets. It's true. Would you rather write feelings and style it with formatting truly aesthetically due, or submit stuff when you should just file it? Lacking sense or form, without a firm grasp on what's really going on, sometimes we have to contend with moral poems, asserting that there is meaning in our uncertain world. Jewish orthodoxy considers Rosh Hashanah, the New Year's Day that just passed this past Monday, the 5,780th anniversary of creation. As we speak, during these current days of awe, running from Rosh Hashanah through next Wednesday's Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, a judgment of everyone's past year is being inscribed into the book of life. Marge Percy responded to this problem. The birthday of the world. On the birthday of the world, I begin to contemplate what I have done and left undone. But this year, not so much rebuilding of my perennially damaged psyche, shoring up eroding friendships, digging out stumps of old resentments that refuse to rot on their own. No, this year I want to call myself to task for what I have done and not done for peace. How much have I dared in opposition? How much have I put on the line for freedom, for mine and others? As these freedoms are pared, sliced, and diced, where have I spoken out? Who have I tried to move? In this holy season, I stand self-convicted of sloth in a time when lies choke the mind and rhetoric bends reason to slithering, choking pythons. Here I stand before the gates opening, the fire dazzling my eyes, and as I approach what judges me, I judge myself. Give me weapons of minute destruction. Let my words turn into sparks. Happily, after the Day of Atonement, the slate will get wiped clean for next year. As commissioned by our host, Phil Taggart, my response is the clinging world. It's best after a fresh rain, you fetch a cupful from some puddle and hang a drop beneath a slide laid gently on the stage, and gaze through concave, convex surfaces into the complex clinging world of lives consuming lives, each seeking its likeness to make more lives, of like purpose and aim. And as they struggle and strive, you rinse the cup and wipe the slide clean for next time. Yes, time tells on us, as it did on W.H. Auden. Hannah Arendt wrote that his face was marked by the heart's invisible furies. Or maybe he just got himself wrinkled up wintering in New York City. Anita and I had dinner with Auden 11 years after Richard Avedon composed this portrait in 1960. At age 64, Auden hadn't changed much beyond this. And looking back, he was already resorting to cliches in a celebrated 1940 villanelle. I'll quote most of it, but mind the following cliches. Time only knows, I told you so, the price we pay, get up and go. If I could tell you. Time will say nothing but I told you so. Time only knows the price we have to pay. If I could tell you, I would let you know. If we should weep when clowns put on their show, if we should stumble when musicians play, time would say nothing but I told you so. The winds must come from somewhere when they blow. There must be reasons why the leaves decay. Time will say nothing but I told you so. Suppose the lions all get up and go, and all the brooks and soldiers run away. Will time say nothing but I told you so? If I could tell you, I would let you know. Indeed, Auden went on to tell us a lot. So what's there to say in response? Problem is that poetry, if confirmed and confined by crushing convention, were all's accustomed ceremonies, as Yeats hoped for his daughter. Such poetry amounts to a modicum security prism, its kaleidoscope walls sharply reflecting fragments of our supposed virtue and depravity, while safely refracting the murderous innocence of the sea outside. On the other hand, freed from the tethers of time and the fetters of good and evil, we float, exposed to conjurers and poets elevating facts to us, so that we needn't imagine meaning solely in the inertia of ritual, tradition, and cliches, nor simply wish this were all just a dream. On the third hand, can't we just be plain silly and grow from that? Time will tell. Speaking of floating, conjurers, and cliches, Here's my poem, Supplication. Lord, all my life I have kept my mind out of the gutter, my heart in the right place, my spirits and hopes and chin up, my shoulders back and my belly in, my voice down, my money where my mouth is, my nose clean and to the grindstone, and out of other people's business, my lips sealed, but my upper lip stiff, my head on straight, my back to the wall, my hands to myself and on the wheel, my tongues in cheek, my fingers crossed, my eye on the ball and on the prize, my feet planted firmly on and my ear to the ground, my elbows off the table and my ass in gear. Now I need physical therapy. Lord, where did I go wrong? Amidst poetry, the mysteries of language, of words and thought, still matter, no matter what. Anne Silsby wrote Aureoling. You love their singing, the thrush, the orioles, though they don't perform for you. Theirs is a clan song. My bugs, my bough, my mate, and see how bright the orange and black of my feathers. Nor do they sing for blighted love, the hard blues of loss we would, or for joy, but because they can't help it, because song blossoms from the stem of their being bird. Human, you can't help trying to understand what stalk you flower from, what undertow rises in the flutist to quicken with breath the arcs and dips of prior minds, or mind itself, playing with fugue, with E equals MC squared, inventing wheel, organ, flute, B minor mass, Buddha, the bomb. The song you bear buds under your mind's tongue like a first word. Here's my responsive poem to Anne Silsby's Aureoling about birds' words. Seriously, everyone takes words very seriously. Homo sapiens is the speaking animal. Please note how careful I was to furnish my poem, Oscar Said a Dirty Word, with rhyme and rhythm. By this means, you will see how I forge a ritualistic contract with the reader, with my fellow humans. Oscar said a dirty word. Oscar said a dirty word his mother heard. A dirty word, what can I do? Whatever shall become of you? She told his dad. Which dirty word? He asked. I hope it wasn't turd. Oh no, Mom said, it was much worse. I think he's learning how to curse. It's not from me he hears such speech, said Dad. You should make sure that each and every word he hears you say is clean and perfectly okay, and proper, not some filthy term that you have said. He must not learn such language, or there'll come a day when people will make Oscar pay a punishment, a heavy price for his not speaking in a nice and decent way. I never do mouth off like that, said Mom. Yet you accuse me. You can go to hell since you use words like that as well. It did not come from me. I'm sure that all I say is nice and pure, said Dad. Said Mom, but don't you see you use foul language more than me? Like shit I do, the Dad retorted, and his face got all distorted. I'm really careful what I say in front of him in every way. You asshole, Mom said. He can hear right now, so you can kiss my rear. Just shut up, Dad said. Say no more. Now, Oscar never spoke before. The word he'd said was Oscar's worst. In fact, it was his very first. Back to birds. Derek Walcott wrote of life and death in metaphors of human development and of the terrifying beauty of the natural world. And, of course, about white egrets, which abound in his works. Some orientation. Pigeon Island is now bound to St. Lucia by a causeway sporting a resort, and lonely Barrel of Beef Islet has become a tourist's scuba destination. As for terrifying beauty, The pleasantly sweet fruit of the manchineel is known as manzanilla de la muerte, little apple of death. Just standing in the rain under this world's most dangerous tree causes blistering of the skin. Conquistador Juan Ponce de Leon, the Fountain of Youth guy, was killed in Florida by an arrow poisoned with manchineel sap. Here's just part 3 of Walcott's The Acacia Trees, where he muses on departed poets, departing egrets, and incoming inspiration. You see those breakers coming around Pigeon Island, bowing like nuns in a procession? One thing I know, when you're gone, like my other friends, not to Thailand or Russia, but wherever it is loved friends go with their different beliefs, who were like a flock of seagulls leaving the mirror of the sand, or a bittern passing lonely barrel of beef, or the sails that an egret hoists, leaving its rock. I go down to the same sea by another road, with manchineel shadows and stunted sea grapes dwarfed by the wind. I carry something to read. The wind is bright, and shadows race like grief. I open their books and see their distant shapes approaching and always arriving, their voices heard in the page of a cloud, like the soft surf in my head. Apparently, outgoing egrets have replaced nightingales as a source of income and fame. So here's my shot at an egret poem. No regrets for egrets. One captive bird aboard a ship once slipped her knot, snagged on the ship's slick slip. Upon my word, that bird absurd, the captain's chaplain cried, that egret's egress from that side, he sighed, was suicide. That bitter fate befit that fowl. An eager eagle-eyed white feathers had port, not starboard, been her route. She'd have escaped, not that it matters. I'll say that I'll pray for the eagle's prey, though it contradicts my secret, that I care not a whit for such a twit as that slipshod shipboard egret. Let's close this haikai with Anita's poem as promised, but I have to explain. The poetry class Anita took with Major Jackson was assigned to write a blues poem. But what did Anita have to be blue about? After all, she was married to me. The human condition? Morality? Regrets about egrets? Turns out it was her struggle with recycling. Our son Greg composed music for Anita's poem and sang it strumming his banjo. I added animation. Hope you enjoy.
Plastic in the blue bin, paper in the red. Gotta learn these rules before I drop dead. Compost scraps, turn off the lights. No plastic bags, bring some order to my life. I'm trying to leave me, but I don't really get it. Got those recycling blues and a serious headache. Tell me I'm selfish, eating burgers and fries. Tofu and sprouts is what they advise. Gotta think of the planet in the ozone thread. No underarm spray, just on a sweat. I'm trying to leave me, but I don't really get it. Got those recycling blues and a serious headache. Gotta get me a hybrid, cut out gasoline. Gotta change my colors to shades of green. Gotta learn the mantra that seal my fate. Gotta look to Greenpeace to find me a mate. Well, I'm trying to leave me, but I don't really get it. Got those recycling blues and a serious headache. Gonna make my clothes from the linen in the dryer. Gonna run my car with the oil from the fryer. Gonna join that crowd of holier than now. Gonna point my fingers and crease my brow. I'm trying to leave me, but I don't really get it. Got those recycling blues and a serious headache.
First time I attended an open mic night with Anita was here in Ventura, but in that old venue over by the pier. We had arrived early before most people, so I had a chance to sketch the scene in a notepad. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Now, back to Phil for open mic time, and again, thank you, Phil Taggart.